From Dinozo being unhealthily obsessed with a woman in Season 7 to Season 3 showing just how privileged detectives can be, here are NCIS's most controversial episodes of all time. When a show is on the air for this long, it's bound to have a controversial episode or two. But since it's been airing since 2003, this show has a lot of problematic episodes that even the most die-hard fans can't get on board with. Starting with this doozy from Season 7, the 21st episode titled Obsession. So the team looks into the sudden death of a Navy officer who was rushed to the emergency room. The lieutenant's sister was nowhere to be found when Dinozo and Agent Ziva David come to talk to her. Dinozo found the sister through what Ziva calls a borderline obsession, and she soon found out about a crazy plot from the Navy Info Ops Center where the lieutenant used to work. Fans have said time and time again that this episode was one of the worst in the whole series for many reasons. Not only did it glorify ex-veterans who were the real villains, it didn't fit with the tone of the rest of the season. At this important point in the story, Ziva had to go through a lot, including being tortured before she could become a naturalized citizen of the US and join the rest of the team. Dinozo's behavior in this episode was just so out of character, plus, he was super mean to her. Even though he liked to joke around and was attracted to a lot of different women, he had never been so obsessed with one, like he was with the lieutenant's sister. This episode changed some core things about the characters and the show, making it stand out as pretty odd, because there isn't much of a reason why Dinozo would care so much about this woman, beyond the problem at hand. But it was nowhere as weird as episode 6 from Season 8 called Cracked. Chief Forensic Scientist Abigail Ciuto had a lot of people who looked out for her, and her fans adored her quirky personality. She has gotten along great with the rest of the NCIS team over the years, especially with Gibbs. Still, she does tend to act like a whiny little kid, even though she's a grown-up. Cracked is a prime example of this. Basically, the team was looking into how a Navy scholar died after being hit by a bus. Abby found a series of codes written on the body after the autopsy, and she was determined to figure out what they meant. The rest of the team, on the other hand, started to worry that she is more interested in breaking the code than in finding out what happened to the researcher and who might have killed her. The episode doesn't do Abby any favors and made fans realize that the writers often use the trope of Abby becoming too interested in one part of the case, sidelining her from her team and the task at hand. Plus, her obsession almost let the killer get away. She did the same thing in Season 5 too. In the episode Dog Tags, fans were pretty irritated to see that they weren't letting Abby grow as a person. It seemed that the super smart, super quirky scientist would outshadow the other characters, especially Gibbs, so the writers would bomb her character to take her out of the spotlight. Anyways, in the episode, Timothy McGee, played by Sean Murray, was hurt by the officer's dog as the squad chases a naval petty officer who smuggles cocaine, and was almost able to catch him. Later, the team found out that the police officer was dead. The investigation continues while Abby tried to clear the dog because she's afraid of losing her job. So rather than having her focus on the murder, the deceased police officer, and her actual job, she was literally chasing a stick around with a dog. If that wasn't bad enough, you would absolutely hate this episode from Season 7 called Jackknife. I mean, the episode was so horrible that it made everyone hate our favorite detectives, Ziva and Dr. Donald Mallard. I know, seems unbelievable, right? But it was that bad. The worst part of the entire thing was the death of a Marine that was linked to a shady trucking business. Fans didn't like that Ziva was an undercover truck driver, saying that it didn't fit her character, and she just couldn't have pulled it off. Ziva and Damon Worth, a former Marine played by Paul Telfer, pose as truck drivers to hide their identities, which was just horrible, and they played it with all the stereotypes. I'm not even kidding, it was just very cringy, and fans hated it. Although not as much as they hated this next episode, Thirst. So get this. In the episode, a Navy officer's vehicle collided with a semi-truck. Ducky talked about the case with his new girlfriend, Mary Courtney. She told him that the Navy officer died of water poisoning. How did she know that? Well, she's a serial killer. Yup. We already knew that Ducky, the medical examiner, had trouble keeping his personal life and work life separate. But it gets a whole lot worse when he meets her. While there's no doubt that she's beautiful, intelligent, and kind, She helps people in need on her own time, but nothing can hide the fact that she's a serial killer who murdered 3 men by drowning them. During one date, Mary told Ducky that she killed these men because she loved him. It's a strange turn of events that didn't make sense. Why would a doctor and volunteer agitator kill 3 people to make a stranger feel better? It's the kind of scene that sticks with you, and not in a good way. Also, can we please stop glorifying serial killers only because they're hot? Speaking of obsessions, what do you think about video games? Well, they're pretty fun, right? But not when they interfere with your work. Can you guess who got distracted by a video game while working on a case? Of course, it was Abby in the first season, episode 4 called The Immortals. This episode was all over the place from the very start. It's about how the body of a 19-year-old Navy seaman with a sword and chains on him was found at the bottom of the ocean. Some people thought he did it to himself, but others didn't agree. As the NCIS team dig deeper, Abby finds a character charter for an MMORPG in the victim's pocket. She was the only person on the team who knew about the game, and it left all the others scratching their heads. Of course, Abby has to play the game to solve the case. All of this might have been clever in theory, but Abby let things get out of hand. No one understood a thing, and they wasted very precious time. This was another instance where the writers made Abby seem dumb instead of the genius that she was. Personal drama aside, don't you hate it when people bring their private lives into work? How would you feel if your co-workers' family members were very involved in your work? Just ask McGee. He's had 2 separate family members involved in cases. In the 9th episode, The Penelope Papers of Season 9, Penelope McGee's grandma was the main suspect in the murder of a Naval Reserve officer. This was the 2nd time that someone in McGee's family was involved in a crime. It happened once before, in Season 4, in the episode Twisted Sister, when McGee's sister was thought to have killed someone. Anyways, during the questioning, McGee got up close and personal with Penny, while the rest of the crew looked into what she did. A scene between a grandson and his grandmother that could have been touching was ruined by dull acting and really bad dialogue. Penny was almost hit by a car, but McGee was there just in time to save her. Not only did the story not do a good job of building up suspense, but it was also very cringy and went against police procedure. I mean, they've been on the air for ages. Shouldn't they know what's right and what's not? Finally, I'm gonna end the video with one of the most controversial things on the show. It happened in Season 3 in the episode titled Deception. It featured everyone's favorite detective duo, Tony and Ziva. But it wasn't nice at all. They break into the home of a missing naval captain and search it thoroughly. Things are quiet until the neighborhood security guards show up. The guard raises his gun, but the dream duo don't seem scared and actually smiled at him as they watch the attackers leave. No matter how you feel about safety in the neighborhood, that seems like a bad idea when you're the one being shot at. Even though their pride and sense of privilege doesn't help them, they still managed to beat the security guard. Fans hated when the two turned the gun on him. He was just doing his job, and now they were laughing at him. The episode reeked of federal privilege. So, from Season 3 that showed how privileged detectives can be, to DiNozzo being unhealthily obsessed with a woman in Season 7, here were NCIS's most controversial episodes of all time.